Welcome to the Good Leadership Podcast. I'm Charles Good. This show is built for leaders, managers, and high achievers who want to think better, grow faster, and perform under pressure. Each episode, I sit down with leading researchers, best-selling authors, and experts to uncover what actually works, the practical tools, proven strategies, and insights you can use when the pressure is real. Because in a world that keeps changing, the edge belongs to those who can outlearn what worked yesterday, outthink what's coming next, and outperform when it counts. Welcome to the 300th episode of the Good Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Good. 6 years of sitting across from some of the most significant thinkers in leadership, learning, and human performance. Researchers, best-selling authors, and practitioners who shape how leadership actually gets done. And when I reached this milestone, I knew I did not want to make this episode a highlight reel. I did not want to simply look back at favorite moments or celebrate that number. I wanted to ask the question that every leader, learner, and professional is quietly wrestling with right now. In an age where AI can increase your output and make it look better, how can you use it in a way that builds your capability, making you sharper and stronger, not just faster? So I did something I've never done before. I sat down one at a time with 6 leading, well-known experts, and I asked each of them the same set of questions about AI and what it's doing to human capability, and what it really takes to keep growing and rising in today's business environment. None of them heard the other's responses, and I took their sharpest moments from each conversation and wove them together in this episode that you're about to hear. Here are the experts that I sat down with. Dan Ariely, professor at Duke University and the author of 3 New York Times bestsellers. He has helped leaders around the world understand the hidden forces behind decision-making, motivation, and human behavior. Dorie Clark. She has been named as one of the top 50 business thinkers in the world by Thinkers 50 and was recognized as the #1 communication coach in the world by the Marshall Goldsmith Global Coaching Association. Sally Helgeson. Cited by Forbes as the world's premier expert on women leadership. She's an internationally best-selling author, speaker, and leadership coach, and has shaped how leaders think about visibility, contribution, influence, and the habits that determine who rises. Whitney Johnson, named one of the top 10 business thinkers in the world, and is one of the leading thinkers on growth and disruption. David Ulrich. He is among the world's most influential HR thinkers and considered the father of modern HR. He is also the author of more than 30 books that have shaped how executives connect talent, leadership, and organizational capability to real business outcomes. And finally, Alison McCauley, who is a social scientist and digital transformation strategist focused on advancing human potential through technology. For nearly 30 years, she has guided business leaders in harnessing emerging technology to advance performance, including more than a decade and a half in collaboration with AI leaders and pioneers. So one important note before we begin. Each of these conversations with these recognized thought leaders went far longer and far deeper than what you're going to hear today. So in the coming weeks, I'll be releasing my full conversations with each one of these experts as a standalone episode, offering you the complete thinking behind these moments. But today, I wanted to put these 6 voices in a conversation with one another around one question. In the age where AI is making your output better, how do you keep building capability and getting better yourself? The first half of this episode is going to examine the trap of how AI makes us look more capable while quietly eroding your capability underneath it. The second half of this episode is going to be the map, and it's going to show you what you need to do to keep growing, keep contributing, and keep rising in this AI era. So let's begin. So let's get started with the trap, because before we can talk about the way through, we have to see clearly what we're up against. And no one names it more precisely than Dan Ariely. His point isn't that AI is bad, just the opposite. The danger is that AI is good, profoundly, seductively good, in a deeply human way. It hands you speed, polish, and ease at the exact moment that effort, struggle, and difficulty would have made you better and stronger. It removes that friction. And that's why this trap is so dangerous. The cost doesn't show up today. It doesn't show up on a project or in a meeting or on the dashboard. Everything looks better than ever. The cost is invisible and it's deferred. And by the time you finally see it, you've already paid for it.
The cookie is an engineered food. that is designed to get us to one, and then another one, and then another one, and have them now. Cookies are not about thinking about long term in the future. It's about what I want now. I want something comfortable, sweet, salty, fat, right now. And I think that AI, in many ways, is even more tempting than cookies. I can really think hard right now. I can try and exercise and think and fail and lots of time, and maybe don't sleep well because I'm still worried about something. Or I could have this very easy fix. How often would we pick the easy fix over something that is good for us in the long term? And I'll give you this in a more extreme way. Imagine we're 5 years from now. AI is much better and robots are much better. And you happen to have two apartments next to each other. In one of them, you live with your spouse. In the other one, you live with your robotic spouse. And the robotic spouse, I don't know if you've noticed, but all of these models are becoming more and more complimenting. Every idea is so smart and so good, and we're so anyway. So you come home from work, so day, you're stressed, you're a little tired. Which door do you knock on? The human spouse or the robotic spouse? The human spouse, might be very good, but it's another human being with complex emotions. The robot, will always miss you, care, do all of those things. And if you have these two, what happens on year 3? After you've already spent some time in the robotic one and probably hurt your relationship with the human one. Now think about the CEO. And the CEO can say, I can get everybody to produce lots of stuff this year. What's the cost? Human capital. By the way, if people stop thinking for 3 months, they don't stagnate, they deteriorate.
So the trap for the individual is the easy fix now, paid for later in capability you won't even miss until the day you reach for it and it's gone. That's you alone at your desk. But I want to widen the lens because the exact same trap is happening at scale most of us never see across entire companies, thousands of people at once. And the person who has watched this most closely is David Ulrich. He has spent over 4 decades studying how organizations turn talent into strength. And he hands us 2 words to tell the difference. 2 words worth holding on to for the rest of this episode: capacity and capability.
Here's a simple message. AI gives me capacity. Capacity means it saves me time. I'll admit, I'm doing a column and I say, wow, I remember something about X. That's Doug McGregor had theory X, theory Y. I just would love to reference that. I go into AI and I say, can you give me a quick summary of this idea? Super. Capacity saves me time. And we're seeing that happen, especially in routine tasks or other tasks in organizations. AI gives me capacity. HI, human capability that we're talking about, however we define it, gives me capability. And that's competence for the individual and capability for the organization. So how do I spend that free time? And here's one of my greatest fears right now. If we let people dedicated to finance exclusively do AI, they're going to turn that capacity into headcount reduction. And so they're going to try to save money. I don't need all the people to do those reports. I don't need the people to do that editing. I don't need the people to do that summary. I can now get AI to do it. And so I don't need 10 people. I'll do 2 people or 1 person. Big mistake. And we're seeing college graduates now coming out, not having the jobs because the companies don't realize that AI can do that capacity, but you've got to take that time and energy and create capability. And then here's the tag I'll end with, that delivers value to a stakeholder. A capability doesn't matter unless a value is created for a stakeholder. If we don't get a customer of value in the marketplace, we're not going to succeed. So what can I do with a new college graduate that will help him or her save time? They're not going to be doing the same kind of reports and analytics that statistics and AI can do. What can they do that will help our customers buy more product? That is just such a fascinating question to me. And that's AI for capacity, human ingenuity for capability.
So hold on to Dave's warning, because it's the hinge of this whole problem. Our instinct is to spend the time AI gives us back, fill it with more tasks, more output, more speed, when the move that actually matters is to invest it in building capability. Spend it and you get faster, invest it and you get stronger. Now, Dave was describing this at a level of the organization. Allison Macaulay takes that exact idea and brings it all the way down to the most personal level there is. Not the company, not the team, your own brain. Because she studies what actually happens neurologically. And the analogy she reaches for is one a lot of us are already living without ever noticing it.
We want the easy way. And we have also seen, this isn't the first time that we've seen how our brain can atrophy when we don't use it for certain things. The calculator, when it was first introduced in schools, created all kinds of protests. For example, I know that my brain has atrophied by using Waze and Google Maps so much that I depend on it. And so it's really easy to fall into this. And so this moment calls for incredible discipline and resolve to keep your brain in the lead. When you do, that gives you an opportunity to really be able to advance with this. But it takes everyday work. It is hard work. The best analogy that I heard and I really love and completely agree with is to think of it in kind of in the same way we think of building muscle. The same thing applies here. So we need to be able to exercise our brain and kind of go through that painful creative struggle to really develop something strong. So while it's painful, that's where the best work comes.
Time under tension. The struggle isn't the obstacle, the struggle's the workout. I love that. Think about what that actually means. Outsourcing your thinking to AI is like hiring a personal trainer and then standing back while the trainer lifts the weights for you. The work gets done, the reps get counted. From the outside, it even looks like a workout. But you're not the one straining against the bar, so you're not the one getting stronger. The trainer is. And that's exactly the trade we're all being offered right now, 100 times a day with AI. Now, Sally Helgeson takes this a step further into something you may be giving away without even realizing it. Because when you hand the hard part to someone else, whether it's another person or AI, she says you don't just lose the practice that should have made you stronger, you also lose something else, something you can't get back as easily.
If you're handing all this off to AI, you don't own it. It may be your intellectual property, it may be your effort. You may have put that effort into it. If you wrote a book in ChatGPT, OpenAI owns it. Let's face it, you don't. And you're not going to go up against them to claim your authorship rights. So it is particularly important in this era to be very clear about the contributions you have made and not shy away from that. But it's very, very important, especially when you can hollow out your own value so easily by an over-reliance on AI tools, which I hear all the time. Oh, I'm putting everything out on, a bot and people will be able to use that and I'll be able to reap benefits from that. Well, you're commoditizing the service that you're offering in the world, but that's fine. Have at it if you want to, but don't forget that you won't own it. So I think that's one of the things that in the enthusiasm is being overlooked.
Sally said something that's easy to skip past. You can hollow out your own value. Hold on to that word value because Dory Clark takes it and turns it into a question of pure economics. Here's the logic. For your whole career, good work was valuable because good work was hard. It was scarce. And scarce things command a premium. But AI just made good-looking work cheap and instant and available to everyone. And the moment something becomes abundant, it usually stops being worth a whole lot. So if competent output is no longer the scarce thing, Dory asks the only question that matters next. Then what is?
What stays with me is a quote from Herbert Simon, who is a Carnegie Mellon computer scientist back in the 1970s. And he said, that because information was getting so prevalent at the time, and back then it was, oh my goodness, there's computers. Eventually there's, oh my goodness, there's cable television. Oh my goodness, there's the internet. Well, now we have AI that's growing exponentially. When information becomes so plentiful, what becomes scarce? And the answer is attention. And so I think it's useful for all of us to really ask the question, as new technologies come online, what is it that is becoming scarce and therefore more valuable? In the case of AI, writing certainly is becoming more plentiful, the so-called AI slop these days. And our attention is certainly more valuable because there's so much coming at us. But I would argue that in person is, and the in-person experience is becoming the most valuable. And so thinking through how we as professionals can leverage that, the relationships that we're cultivating, the in-person experiences that we're able to offer, is something that, at least right now, AI can't touch.
So Dory's answer is that attention is what becomes scarce, the human presence that was never going to scale. And that points to something every guest so far has been circling. The things AI puts at risk aren't out in the world, they're inside of us. The judgment, the focus, the ability to do hard things, the capabilities that only stay sharp if we keep using them. Whitney Johnson names the deepest one of all. She studies how people grow, and she describes growth as a muscle. When you take on hard, unfamiliar work, that muscle gets stronger. But when AI makes everything easy and you stop struggling, the muscle weakens.
The only way through a disruption is to disrupt yourself, is your ability to learn, to grow, develop, to change. And I think the thing that I would add is that the challenge is that the older someone gets, the more they have insulated them from doing new things. And so that ability to serially disrupt themselves can get pretty flaccid. And so when you're younger, you have to do what your parents want you to do and what your teachers want you to do. You're still pretty good at disrupting yourself. So the question for anybody who's like over the age of, let's call it over the age of 40, are you keeping that muscle of disrupting yourself? Are you going and lifting weights?
Six people, six completely different fields, six different vantage points, different perspectives. And every one of them just described the exact same trap. Dan Ariely called it the easy fix, the cookie you reach for now, paid for later, and capability you didn't know you were spending. Dave Ulrich showed you that organizational version, companies banking the time AI saves them instead of reinvesting it, and breaking the pipeline that builds their next generation of leaders. Allison Macaulay made it cognitive. The mental struggle is the workout. And when you let the machine do the thinking, your own thinking is what atrophies. Sally Helgeson warned that when you hand work over to AI or someone else, you don't just lose the practice, the reps, you lose the ownership, and you start hollowing out your own value. Dory Clark reframed it as economics. When good work becomes cheap and everywhere, the scarce thing, your attention, the human connection, is what is scarce and becomes more valuable. And Whitney Johnson named the deepest one, perhaps of all, the discipline to keep building genuine capability, to keep disrupting yourself and growing, even when AI has your output looking better than ever. 6 experts talking about one single trap. Where your output goes up, the work gets faster, cleaner, more polished than anything you could produce alone. Everything you can measure looks better than it ever looked. But underneath all of it, invisibly, quietly, one easy choice at a time, that capability that produced it is getting weaker. And here's the part that should genuinely worry you. You can't feel it happening. There's no alarm. There's no bad performance review. No moment where it becomes obvious, because the work still looks great. It looks better. Right up to the day until you need that capability and it's no longer there. And it's too late to rebuild it. And that's what makes this trap so dangerous. Not that it's hard to escape, but that it's comfortable. That it feels like winning the entire time you're losing what matters most. So that's the trap. And if you feel a little uneasy right now, good. That means you were paying attention and you're realizing what's at stake. But this episode is not just a warning. Every one of these 6 leading experts didn't just name the danger and offer generic advice like, be careful. They handed me a way out of it with practical, concrete moves you can use right away for keeping your capabilities sharp while everyone else lets theirs quietly erode. And when you line those answers up, something powerful happens. They don't compete with one another, they stack on top of one another. 6 defenses against the same threat: what to protect, what to let go of, what to build, and exactly how to use AI so it sharpens you instead of hollowing you out. So let's start stacking, one move at a time, and it begins with the most basic question of all. Of everything you do, what should you protect and what should you let go of? Dan Ariely gave me the cleanest answer of anyone, and it starts, of all things, with the smart lighting in his apartment.
Here, we should separate your central skill from your peripheral skills. So I have an apartment with smart electricity, and together with Claude Code, we figure out how the smart electricity work, and I now have an app that does all kinds of wonderful things. It says things, it closes light, it closes shutters, but it was never something I wanted to be really good at. I'm happy to produce something. It's not my area. Now you take writing about social science. Very different. Here, I want to invest in myself. I've many years ahead. I want to keep on being good at what I do. I want to stay sharp. I want to be at the top of my field. I want to keep on getting better. So, whereas in my core, I want to invest in the human capital, on the periphery, I'm perfectly happy to do something creative, interesting, outside of my main skills.
So that's Dan Ariely's rule. But it raises the obvious next question. If you're going to defend your human core, you better know exactly what it's made of. What's the part that's actually worth protecting? Dave Ulrich has spent a lot of time answering this question, and he frames it with a formula that reframes our entire conversation. Most people think about AI as addition. It's you plus the AI tool equals a little more than you had before. But Dave says that's all wrong. The relationship isn't human plus AI, it's human times AI. The human doesn't add to the AI, the human multiplies what AI can do, which means the human capability isn't just something you can neglect, it's the multiplier that the whole equation depends on.
I now think the formula is HI times AI, not plus, but times. The reason it's a multiplier is if either of those are low, they're both low on a 10-point scale. If you get 8 plus 2, if it's plus, that's 10 out of 20. If you get 8 times 2, that's 16 out of 100. And that multiplier forces us to be good at both. The second thing I'll add, I think HI is human ingenuity. And let me tell you why I like ingenuity. Ingenuity is intelligence, but it's not just raw intelligence, it's applied intelligence. And so as I've been playing with AI, no question, we'll talk about that. AI gives you parity, it gives you capacity, it gives you algorithms that allow you to do a lot of things quickly. Human ingenuity gives you, I think, 4 things, and this is my latest thinking, that will be changed by the time I join your 400th episode. Human ingenuity, if you're a leader, this is what you bring to a problem: a vision of the future. AI doesn't predict the future. It can summarize the past. Second, innovation in the present. AI is not innovative. It's a great integrator. It's not innovative. It doesn't create the new stuff. Third is emotion in the relationship. AI is fake emotion. I want the human emotion, the empathy, and then wisdom in decisions. Now, if you look at learning, vision, where are we going? Innovation, how do we get there in a creative way? Emotion, empathy, feeling the personal commitment, and wisdom in decision. I think those pieces are human ingenuity. So I call that the view of HI, VIEW, vision, innovation, empathy, and wisdom. But AI times HI.
So Dave gave you the what, the vision, the innovation, the emotion, the wisdom, and the human ingenuity But a framework is only as good as what you can do on a Tuesday morning. And that's where Whitney Johnson comes in, because she takes that big idea and turns it into something you can actually start to do this week. Her move is practical, almost mechanical. And she says, use AI as a mirror. Let it reflect your work back to you. Program it to push you instead of flatter you. But listen to where she lands it, because after all the tactics, she ends on the one thing that AI can't touch.
Most of our calls now that we're, as knowledge workers that we're doing are recorded. So I would encourage people to feed them into AI and ask, how well am I listening? Am I talking over people? You can use AI as this bonus prefrontal cortex as a mirror for your own development. So there's this opportunity for you to 10x or even 100x who you are as a leader, as a human being, if you will use AI to help you evaluate. And the second suggestion I would have for you is you can program your AI to give it some guiding principles. Like, your job is not to be a sycophant. You can program it with, these are my values: honesty, integrity. I want you to push back on me, so that it can really give you feedback that's useful. So give it some guiding principles, use it to reflect back, to coach you, and then focus on 5% better. So focus on, Jeff Downs has said, the signature of mediocrity is not an unwillingness to change, it's the chronic inconsistency. So the thing that you can do today is start recording, analyzing your calls, give your AI guidelines that are consistent with your values, and then pick 5% better. And I guess the last thing I would say is that AI is doing amazing work, but it's really important that you do your own work as well of becoming a better human.
So Whitney says, do your own work of becoming a better human. That's the principle. But there's a practical problem hiding inside of it, and one almost no one talks honestly about. AI is about to hand a lot of people something they've never had: time, real hours given back every single week. And here's the uncomfortable truth: most people are going to waste them. They're going to fill the free time with more output, more email, more busy work, and end up exactly where they started, just faster. So the real question isn't whether AI gives you time back, it's what you're going to do with it. And Dorie Clark answers that better than anyone, for one simple reason: she's living it right now, and she's going to tell you where she's placing her bets with the hours she's gotten back.
I can give you an example of the bets that I'm making right now. So I would say this spring, the first 6 months of this year, I have spent just an absolutely disproportionate amount of my time doing deep learning activities in a few areas. One is AI itself, because I think that you need to be conversant with the tools. This is just so important for people to get the jump on this. So that's one. The second one is I have been spending a huge amount of time with video, and in particular trying for social media to get better on Instagram, to learn how to do that. Because again, it's not to say, AI is going to start creating video. It already can. But for right now, text is a lot easier to produce for AI than video. And so if we're thinking about competitive advantage or things that there's less of because a person still has to do it, by and large, video is one of them. And so I want to over-index on that right now. And the third piece is long-form content creations. I'm writing a book. It's called The Definitive Guide to Becoming a Coach. It's coming out next fall of 27, with Marshall Goldsmith and Alyssa Cohn. And so that's a kind of deep think, like hundreds or thousands of hours spent on crafting this thing that is unique intellectual property that will go out into the world. And I think that those are sort of the bets that I'm placing in the AI era.
So for Dorie, it was deep skills, scarce formats, and original work. Those are Dorie's bets. And notice what every one of them has in common. They all require you to keep doing the hard thinking, not AI. And that's the thread running underneath the whole second half of this episode. How do you actually work with AI without letting it work instead of you? Allison McCauley has been living inside that question perhaps longer than almost everyone. So when she tells you how to use these tools without losing yourself in them, it's not a hunch. It's 3 decades of watching what actually happens to people who get this right and to those who get it wrong. And her answer comes down to one deceptively simple instruction.
Keep your brain in the lead. Okay, so how do you do that? You start off by fully minding your own brain before you turn to AI. Then you turn to AI, and then you take a break and you fully mind your own brain again. You get in the creative struggle. You give feedback to AI. You give it a role. You tell it how you want it to serve you. What role is it taking? You give it instructions on how to make sure that it's delivering to you responses in a way that work for you. You're giving it feedback and iterating off of that. You're not using it as the answering machine. You are keeping your own brain in the lead. And if you do that, this is an unprecedented opportunity.
I love what Allison says, to keep your brain in the lead. That protects what's happening inside you, your thinking, your judgment, your capability. But there's one piece left, and it's about something outside of you, what other people can actually see. Because here's the problem that Sally Helgeson points out. In a world where everyone's work is AI polished, all that output starts to look the same, competent, clean, and completely anonymous. You can't tell who actually did the thinking. Because in this day and age, it's no longer enough to be good. You have to make sure that your contribution is seen.
What compounds, I think, for leaders is that people want to be seen. They want to be recognized. They want to feel that their voice is heard and respected. That doesn't necessarily mean someone will go along with it. They may disagree, but they want to feel as if they are heard and respected. And only a human, at least in this stage of our development, is capable of providing that. So we need leaders who are really good at being able to pace their tempo, to look someone in the eyes, to really listen to what they're saying, and to resonate with what the feeling behind it is, to understand that and to make that person feel as if he or she is valued. That doesn't mean they're guaranteed to have a job forever, but that's fine as long as you can feel that you are valued and people understand the worth of what you contribute. And this is something that an algorithm cannot do.
6 leading experts, 6 ways through. Now step back and look what they actually told you to do. Because something is hiding in plain sight, and it's the point of this entire episode. Not one of them said to produce more. Dan Ariely said protect your core, the parts of your thinking and judgment you should never hand to AI. Because once you do, you stop being the author of your own choices. Dave Ulrich said you are the multiplier. The only equation that matters is human ingenuity times AI. Whitney Johnson said, keep disrupting yourself. Use AI to take friction out of the busy work so you can keep stretching into new curves and jumping curves. Dory Clark said, pour your time into what stays scarce and valuable. Take the hours AI hands back and reinvest them in reputation, relationships, and long games no algorithm can shortcut. Allison McCauley said, keep your brain in the lead. Use AI as a thinking partner. You actively direct, not the driver you passively ride with. So your own mental muscles keep getting stronger. And finally, Sally Helgeson said, make your contribution unmistakable. In a world full of AI polish, you have to work so that people can still see clearly what's actually yours and why it matters. 6 leading experts in different fields. Every one of them pointed to what's underneath, to the judgment, the originality, the relationships, the growth, the thinking, the human part. And here's what they all understand, and what most people are still missing. Output still matters, but it means less than it used to, because output is no longer proof of capability. AI has broken that link. Now, the output can get stronger without the person getting stronger as well. The work can look polished without the capability behind it being built, which means the output is no longer the differentiator. The capability underneath is. And remember, this is only the opening move. Today, you heard the sharpest moments, or some of the sharpest moments from each of these 6 conversations that went far deeper than one episode could ever hold. Starting next week, I'm going to release all 6 in full, one at a time, with room to breathe. So if one of them made you lean in today, follow the show so you don't miss what's coming up next. To everyone who has listened, subscribed, and shared an episode, or have been part of this journey for the last 6 years across 300 episodes, my sincere thanks and appreciation to you. You are the reason this show exists. Thank you again. And until next time, remember, it's not what you know, but what you do differently and consistently that makes a difference.